All right, hey, thanks for joining in on this week's contribution stream. I'm not going to be working on PHPStan Drupal directly, but I'm going to be working on PHPStan deprecation rules, the package for PHPStan that checks if you're using deprecated code. One issue that got opened a little over a year ago is that there's the Symfony PHPUnit bridge, and that allows you to mark tests as legacy. And legacy tests don't report deprecations. It's a way to test your deprecated code without having PHPUnit warn about them. And to do so, you just add the group legacy to the test method. There's other ways like the legacy prefix, but the most common way, and as you see is the recommended way, is to do @group legacy. The problem is that's not a standard form. We'd have to do like @deprecated as well. So it's not picked up by PHPStan. And originally this was going to be like, won't fix, won't do. So instead of taking it legacy, just also add the deprecated tag. But what was decided later on is that we could support this by adding a resolver into the package. So essentially delegating the logic of, is this deprecated, to a resolver, and that resolver can have custom logic in it. So I had this comment of last July. So the extension type, and by default, it would check is deprecated, and then something inside of it could check for other tags as well. And that could be documented in the parameters. And then I asked for a little bit of help, but kind of went quiet. And then the comment came up yesterday that bumped this back in my brain, and I figured it'd be a good chance to dive into this. So I took some time ahead of stream to get a little ready just to see where I needed to go. So I went inside to the extension type resolver, and it's fairly straightforward. There's this interface, and it has isCheckedException. Hey everybody, thanks for joining in. So it has this method called isCheckedException, and inside its implementation, it checks for these regular expressions, and if it matches, it returns false. So this says like, don't check this exception. And if we look at its usage, we can see that all logic has been basically delegated to this resolver to see if an error should be returned or not. And these are in different rules. So if it's a checked exception, it returns yes. Otherwise, like this is to be ignored. Actually, I don't remember the full wording. But basically, if this says it's checked, you don't need to do anything extra, it bails, otherwise it would report the error. So that's what we need to do, is implement a similar resolver that returns is deprecated beyond just the typical PHPDoc annotation. So I want to look at now also, when I copy, I don't want to copy the full. I need to see where this is configured. So it's not in the default configuration there, but it should be. Okay, here we go. So it's in this config.neon. So we have rule exceptions. Is this the, okay. So auto wired. Interesting. So here's the arguments, and then arguments, unchecked exception, regexes, class. So these are all things that can be configured. Now, I don't know if it should be pegged this way. To me, it seems like something that there should be a type resolver, and then it has a stack of checkers that it implements. So we'll see. Otherwise, I know in my comment here, so we'll need a parameter stream, like deprecated tags, list of string. We need more than that. It can't just be a list that says @legacy, because that's not what PHPUnit bridge supports anymore. It's @group legacy. So we need something that can actually parse the phpDoc. So my first thought is, let's build the type resolver and get all the existing tests to pass. And once the existing tests pass, then we can we can try adding an additional type or additional checker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this absolute path and get PHPUnit set up and run the tests and just verify the tests are running. So let's go to test frameworks. Not get this set up. Autoloader is going to be vendor autoload.php. All right, default configuration file. I copied that. Set. Let's make sure PHP is set to an interpreter. So now if I were to, great, there's phpUnit.xml. If I press run, we'll get all the tests and everything should be passed. Awesome. So let's start refactoring the code because we now have a baseline. We have green tests by doing test-driven development. We're adding features, but we're not adding the functionality we want yet. So we just prove that things continue to pass. So rules, deprecations, just call this, oh, where did I? So they have it, it's under rules, exception type resolver, rules, deprecation. Rules. I'm just going to put it under source because it feels weird to put it under, or maybe not. I mean, that's where it falls in here or in the others. In the main repo, it's under rules and exceptions. So I guess why not put it here? So we'll call this, I gave a name for it in this ticket, deprecation type resolver. I don't know if I like deprecation type, whatever. Names can always be bike shed later. Just get it written and then we can come up with better names at a later time. So let's create the deprecation type resolver and start borrowing some concepts. I'm going to turn off quality tools, PHPStan. Let's just turn this off right now. Yeah, I'm going to click apply. I'm just going to turn that off to speed up PHP Storm. This is declare strict types. Let's copy the namespace. PHPStan rules deprecations. Let's say interface. Public function is deprecated. And I'm not sure what will even pass to this. So let's just go look at access deprecated property rule. So there's deprecated scope helper. If the scope is scope deprecated, I know I dove into this a bit before, but I didn't save any notes. So actually is scope deprecated. Get reflection class is deprecated. This is actually what we need. We need to find out if the function is deprecated. Scope get function. Scope get class reflection. Class is deprecated. This is inside the class reflection. Oh, and it gets to resolve phpDoc. Deprecated scope helper. Is this in this code base? It is. Did I comment this here? I did not. Maybe this will start to come back to me as I go through it. So we have the scope. So really, I said 1 week to Pittsburgh and beer. I will not be in Pittsburgh. So DrupalCon Pittsburgh is next week. And I won't be there because it's my wedding anniversary and the last week of school. I thought about making it a family trip like I've done for DrupalCon New Orleans and Nashville, but with it being the last week of school, it didn't seem really appropriate to haul the kids out for that. So I will not be at Pittsburgh, but I will be in Portland next year for 2024. At least I think it's in Portland because that's the early May. So sorry, no DrupalCon for me this year. Unless I magically get to go to DrupalCon Lily and go to DrupalCon Europe. So that'd be cool. All right, so it seems like is scope deprecated needs to be called here. And we need to call it in decided this method, but then this is no longer a static function, and everything would need to be rewritten, and that just sounds painful. Oh shoot, your company stopped paying for travel. That's a bummer. I know I would have been lucky enough to have my trip covered, but just was not able to make it. I'm not going to a few other conferences because it's just not in the budget. All right. So I'm going to try to reread these comments. Just see. Doesn't support. Doesn't matter. New extension type. Well, custom logic to decide if the scope is deprecated or not, which means that this static helper will now need to be not static at all, unless we can, hopefully I can just mock it in here in such a way. So that's one thing I want to do. I want to try to just mock it. So interface is deprecated. That means it should receive the scope and delegate. So it's going to receive the scope and all right. So is deprecated. So let's do a is scope deprecated. Let's do so default deprecation type resolver. Let's just follow some of the same naming. Copy the boilerplate. So final class default implements deprecation type resolver. Let's add the methods stub. Why don't we copy this code out into here. And we'll say, let's call them checkers equals an empty array, new default deprecation type checker, and say for each checkers as checker. So in Drupal Commerce, we have concepts like this. Oh, sweet. Thank you, Copilot. So in Drupal Commerce, we have this for like price resolving or the default store, where there's things that could resolve, and the first thing that returns a value, we return it. I guess it's like there's a proper design pattern. Like it's not first in, first out. I don't know. It's basically just going round and round. First thing that returns a value goes through. So in this case, if nothing returns, the first thing that returns true, it exits early. If nothing returns true, it fails. So we can register the different checkers in here. The default one being the deprecation type resolver or default deprecation resolver. I don't like the word type, so I am going to rename this, if I use the right hotkeys, to just deprecation resolver, which should rename the default. All right, is deprecated. Let me catch up in the chat. When you get a decent breakpoint, I have a commerce question for you. All right, I will take that in just a moment. So really, I refactored things around right here. It's not stateful yet, but if I were to rerun the tests, all right, so what's the commerce question? I'll take that now while the tests run, and they passed. So yeah, fill the commerce question in, because I think I'll be okay. So what we need to do now is go to rules, services. So now we need to register the deprecated scope helper. Okay, I didn't need Copilot. It just did that automatically. Oh, why isn't editor config being picked up? Wait, editor config, neon, tab style 4. What? Oh, this happened to have, hold on. Is it, I gotta figure out why editor config is not. Editor config. Seems may be overridden by editor config. Why is this not working? What is going on here? One second. I'll get to your question once I figure out why it's not. All right, there we go. Question. So, are there any main commerce modules that aren't ready for D10? I'm getting ready to do a few commerce site updates, 2 from 9 to 10, 1 from 7 to 10. It's a good question. I honestly don't know. I haven't touched the commerce site in like a year, just because at Acqui I don't really work with commerce and I don't do any side work. I would say probably not, because Centaro's been real good at making sure everything's up to date, like the core modules. I think where you'd be the most stuck with like getting Drupal 10 ready is more the like the quirky payment gateways, not quirky. Let's say the smaller payment gateways based on regional areas. So in Europe, there's like a payment gateway per country. So that could be it. But like Stripe's ready. I'm sure Braintree's ready if it's not rolled into PayPal already. You know, Authorize.net is ready. All those things. So I follow like core and like commerce API the most, but like some of the fringe, not really. Especially since even when I was building commerce sites, we didn't use that many commerce contrib. You know, I guess commerce email became a thing, but that is D10 ready. Commerce invoice, anything that's got Centaro's stamp on it is probably is going to be D10 ready. So I did do Option Command L to do quick format, and at first it said no changes. So I think it just PHPStorm decided not to respect editor config for a minute. I'm not too sure. All right, so let's see. We have this now registered as a service. Just want to go look at where this is injected. I don't want to have to put this in all the classes. I guess that's like what I find to be the most annoying part of this, is that we have to add it as a dependency to all the classes and replace the usage. And that's a huge bummer, but I don't see any other way around this. And actually this naming is wrong. This should be deprecated scope resolver. So deprecated scope resolver. Scope helper is scope deprecated. We'll also change this to be is scope deprecated. Had a similar bug today at work as well. Had 2 instances opened and one can't parse. And they kept running. Yeah, have had instances where if I have 2 or even 3 PHPStorms open, things get really funky. Especially if one's rebuilding caches. If you have multiple PHPStorms open, a cache rebuild or index on one triggers like an index across all of them. And I think that's because they introduced shared caching some time ago. Yeah, just weird little quirky things. And also, this is the first time I've opened this project in PHPStorm also. I opened it, didn't close it. Who knows? Software is hard. I still would prefer using PHPStorm over VS Code for a lot of the niceties it provides. Okay, so is scope deprecated? This goes to all the checkers. And I want to find a way to test this. Or rather, I need to look at some documentation. Let's go to phpstan.org. documentation, developing extensions, and copy a format with the class reflection extensions. So we need to make a tagged service. Because essentially that's the idea is we're going to tag the services, then it does like it iterates through them all. Although I'm pretty sure that Net doesn't support waiting of services, so I should look at how these are implemented. Like this might actually need to be, because we always want the simple one to work first. We always just want this to run first and then fall back to the more complicated. And we can't do weighted services as far as I know. So let's look at the extension. Container return type extension. Dynamic return type extension directory. I need to look in the configuration at this. So broker. And remember, I need to remember how this is. Dependency injection. Type. Let's see. Provider. No, reflection. Here we go. It's broker, add properties, add. I need to remember how this works. Nothing found. It's somewhere. Oh, wait, shoot. Here we go. That's not. I don't remember how this is served up, and it's using Net framework, and I'm not as familiar with that compared to Symfony. So tags, I don't remember how tags work. Container factory. Because something has it read all the tags. PHP parser, the broker, get by type. Construct. No. 1 second. I wish there was a better way to do this. So we got the net container, get service. Get services by tag. Just find this usage real quick. Base method. Type specifier factory. Collectors. Dependency injection reflection. Oh, here we go. Lazy class. Annotations. So annotations reflection. This registry class reflection registry. Get by type. Just a broker. And all these tags. Okay, so registry provider. This feels like a huge API change. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole and then get it refused for work, but I don't think there's a way around it. All right, so implements. Where is this registered here? Class factory. All right, there's the class and there's the factory. But where is that then registered? To be able to influence the container. No type resolver, better reflection provider. Oh, because it grabs it on. Man, okay. All right. So I was overthinking this. Maybe. So what we would need is to just provide our own tag and have the service would just on construct would need to consume those tag services. So shouldn't have closed that. Let's get tags. We'll do PHPStan that broker. So let's just go ahead. We're going to copy this here. So let's copy this class, which is the default deprecated scope resolver. We'll say PHPStan. That deprecations dot deprecated scope resolver. And I thought there was a way to, I looked into this before, rules. How did rule? I thought there was an easier way to do this, but I guess not, especially if it's trying to do it lazy. So I noticed everything now is moved to lazy. So instead of being compiled in the container, it seems to just fetch it as needed. So that's why it has this construct with the container. So let's follow that pattern. So this is the factory, then it has a provider. Jeez. All right, let's not make it that intense. This returns a new registry with the get by type. Let's just inject a container into deprecated scope helper. All right. This can no longer be static. And we'll have to do checkers are this container get by type, get by tag, broker factory. Let's do public const extension tag. Copy this tag I wrote. And again, anything can always be rewritten once it gets reviewed. So say, so checkers would be this container gets services by tag, self-extension tag. Thank you, Copilot. And we can even do, I gotta stop closing things. So this would, like, using the factory creates the registry and gives some performance. So we're not always fetching from the service container. So I'll just say private array. I don't know if private checkers equals array. Let's say if count this checkers. Give me that back. It's equal to 0. We'll say this checkers. And we can say this checker. So then we only fetch from the service container once, and this gets preloaded. Now everything's going to be broken because that's not a static method anymore. Yep. non-static method, which means that this has to be injected everywhere. Which just seems very unfortunate. No, no. Deprecated. Helper. Now I'll have to go and refactor all this. This is one where it'd be great if I just set up Rector and I somehow wrote a rule, but I figured I'd spend more time with Rector in writing this rule than it would be to manually replace this across the board. So let's see. I ran the test. I had 16 failures. There should be only 15 now, I would hope. Nope. All right. So let's keep. Guess let's go ahead and go copy this into the next one and do the copy paste game. I would really like to see this count go down. Type error, argument 1 must be of type. It's not auto-wired. That's why. Shoot. I thought rules were auto-wired. Custom rules. No. Developing extensions. Shoot. Extension types. Custom rules. No, I thought that rules were auto-wired. Because that would make this even more harsh. Auto-wired. Tags, arguments. Auto-wired false. No. No, auto-wired. What's construct? All right, I gotta see if let's do auto-wire. Auto-wiring. There we go. Service objects can ask others. Constructor service. There are multiple services of the requested type, and it's not obvious one. Nothing about rules, so let's see if it's not in here either. Darn. I really thought, well, why? Hold on. This is okay. Why is this automatically auto-wired, but not? But not. Let's look in here. Why is this able to be auto-wired, but not anything else? So the class factory, that's provider. Reflection provider. Auto-wired is this name? Do I need to? Let's copy this here. the other question is, this is used in rules, so why does this not need type hint? How come that didn't need to have it defined? Deprecation argument 1 must be of type better reflection provider given. Okay. I'm doing something wrong. Access deprecated property rules. Better reflection provider given. Let me go ahead and shift this. It shouldn't matter because it should just work. And I'm going to rerun this rule. Too few arguments. Oh. Because the test case is manually constructing the rules. That's why. So I'm going to say new deprecated scope helper. Self-container get by type. Let's do type. Okay, we're not going to replace the static call. Service of type deprecated scope helper not find. Did you add it to a configuration file? Which this get ruled, this analyze. Rule case, get collectors. So in here, analyze rules, get additional configuration files. So what I think I'll have to do is this rule will also have to include but that's not the right. It's just rules. Test. One more. There we go. All right. Let's run the test and see if it hits. So yeah. Okay. There we go. So it couldn't get itself because it didn't have the additional configuration files. So what about the test, which has this deprecated class helper? What rule has this? Type hint declared in class. What's this bootstrap? Nope. Rules, type hint. Type hint deprecated in class method signature. Okay, so it creates the class there. Because the class helper only needs the reflection provider, it doesn't need the service container. That's why. I feel like this has gone down a bad path. So we got to go into here. But we need to make the scope be more powerful. So I'm just going to keep going with it and hope it wasn't completely wasted effort because I'm honestly not seeing any other way to do this. That also means all the tests are going to need to include its own configuration. And that's what I would like to somehow avoid. Like I was hoping that, or maybe that's where the lazy provider comes in registry, because then you have that wired in. You don't need to inject the container and do these additional rules because you just have the registry. So let's try that approach. If I got to refactor everything, you know what? Yeah, if I have to, I'm gonna have to inject the deprecated scope helper no matter what. I'm actually gonna go ahead and just move it second to everything because it is new. So if we add this, I have to redo a bunch of the tests, but then I can optimize it with the registry. So I'm just gonna keep going forward. Let's go ahead. I'm just gonna put it at the end. It's just gonna be a little bit of busy work. I update all these classes. Call the deprecated function rule. This. No, once we can use PHP 8, this would be so amazing because it would require us to, we could just use promoted constructors and we wouldn't need to do any of this. It would automatically assign, but not there yet. Wait, that said there's an error. Where's the error? So I do notice when using Copilot, it randomly deletes filling parentheses or doesn't provide them. Let's see, I want to just keep this line copied. Deprecated scope helper. So Copilot's a little slow, but honestly, it helps out with these little menial tasks. Whoa, it went off the rails a bit. There we go. All right. So no, not deprecated class helper. Fetching class constant rule. So you know what I can do? Is just get these all in and I can mass replace the static calls. So I'm gonna do that because then I can just replace all of these, but you know what? I'm in here anyways. I'm just gonna do it all at once. I'm going to go ahead and put it here since it's injected. This deprecated. Oh, joy. All right, we're getting close. Only so much more to go. Now, the good question is after this, when we have support for this, is where should the rule live? The rule that supports the PHPUnit bridge legacy group tag. And I think I'm going to put it into PHPStan Drupal to start, but eventually it should go into the PHPStan Symfony package. But if I put it into the Drupal one, I know it can easily be used by the Drupal community. And then Drupal core doesn't have to add the Symfony package. So that'd be one thing, is if it goes to the Symfony package right now, I don't think the Drupal community is using it, even though it should probably start. So I'll put it into PHPStan Drupal. Oh, wait a second. Inheritance of deprecated interface rule. I got way too ahead of myself. This does not need it, because that does not have the check. This does. So that was the other problem I figured out, is once we get this released, then we got to work on the actual implementation that allows this. But it'll be nice to have this solved after a year or two. And sometimes it just takes time, so you know what you're doing. Exposure. Deprecated. Okay, 2 more. Several more. Just start at the end. Oh, this doesn't even have a constructor yet. There we go. Thank you, Copilot, for generating the constructor. So if you haven't tried Copilot yet, Copilot, it's was it like $10 a month? So and your mileage may vary. Also, make sure you can actually use it at work, because that's one thing to consider, is you might not be able to have it scan your code. But I've been using it with my open source work and just testing it out to make things a little bit faster. And already I'd say it's made this a little bit faster. This auto completed some things that, like this drop down is PHPStorm doing its thing, and usually it PHPStorm suggests like the name, but you have to start typing. It's kind of nice that it just starts assuming things before I have to start writing. All right, so we have all these now converted. Now I have to go update all the tests. And then I need to move from, what I think I need to do is move from this helper receiving the container, is it needs to be generated by a factory, so that way in the test they don't need to have that new configuration. So you go to test. So there's that. And if I rerun the field, we should get less. No. Oh, that's right. It's more. It's this additional config. Right, deprecated function call. Let's see if Copilot can auto-generate. Does. Awesome. Deprecated method call. So if it's at least smart enough to figure this out, it's like having, I can keep my clipboard with the more annoying. No, it's not true. Or in this case, it's not going to. Nope. Okay, it got confused. I'm gonna go ahead and recopy things. All right, the static method call. All right, now it's back on track. So let's update all these constructors. Rerun the test. We should get more green. Yep, getting more green. Nope. Copy. Whoa. Do copy replace since Copilot. Seems like Copilot screws up after I run the test. So we'll go paste this. Copy. Let's move to the next one. Inheritance of deprecated class rule. I thought we didn't need this one. We do. All right. Inheritance to deprecated class. Just remember. All right, we're down to 9 failures. 6. All right. So test instantiation. Need a copy. And then the next step is I'm going to move to that lazy registry approach. It'll undo a lot of the work I just did, but I want to just at least get back to green tests and prove that the auto wiring works for my own sanity. So type hint. Oh. Copy, paste this. Let's see, time check, 3 o'clock. All right, so I've got about another half hour, 45 minutes before I have to run. And if I don't get this perfect, it's at least going to be really close to get a review. You know, there will be things that can be tidied up, but it'll be ready for review to make sure it's on the right track. I would say this is one of the hardest parts about open source and working in open source is you like, I need to make this one small change and it leads to a big amount of effort. And then you just hope that it's on the right course. But I honestly don't see any other way for this to work without having made the this deprecated scope helper be stateful inside the service container. I did a cut there, so I messed up my clipboard. So let's rerun all the tests. All right, there we go. All set. Now I want to refactor this because with how this is set up, I can't test the group legacy ones. Show what I mean by stateful? Sorry. So before it was a the deprecated scope. This was a let's get the diff open and group by directory. So when I say stateful, this used to be a static function, so it didn't have any dependencies. It had no it's just static. And now instead of it being a static call, it's an object, it's an instantiated class, which means it has state, it has properties, which required us then to have to inject it into every single rule. So I consider that to be stateful in a way. I guess not truly, because there's not real content in it, but it went from being static to non-static. And that's why it required so much refactoring in this case. So in order to test the end goal of the checkers, we actually do need to move to a repository, because there's no way to test this helper, because it takes the container and fetches the checkers that way. We need a class that receives an array of checkers in a factory that creates it. So let's go back to PHPStan and try to mimic other practices. So let's go ahead. We'll create a namespace called dependency injection. And we will parameter schema extension. So it's a compiler extension. Oh, I think this is what I was looking at before. Is this like compiler extension? And it's this we can't hook into. But we can do provider. Hold on, where did I? All right, so let's look at this one. It says lazy dynamic throw type. This doesn't seem lazy at all. One second, let's see how this is used. Oh, okay, it's in there. No, don't open the PHP script in Chrome. So, all right, reflection. We'll just say reflection extension registry provider. What do I call this? We'll say lazy deprecated scope resolver provider. Sure. Sounds great. Clear strict types. So what is this going to be? Namespace is PHPStan dependency injection. That's right. Class lazy. Does it really need an interface? I don't think so. But we do need the container. No. Copilot. I don't want that. I'm going to say get registry. We'll just say, I'm going to say public function get scope helper. So this gets the registry. Sure, we can rename things. Well, so this is the factory. And we're going to refactor this to be an array. Let's move everything to the resolver provider. Services by tag. Now this struct would be array checkers. And this checkers. Blah, blah, blah. So now this does not require the container. This checkers equals checkers. So now we have this class back to being, it doesn't need the container. It has a factory. And so I should go configure that factory. PHPStan deprecations, deprecated scope resolver. Sure. I'm going to look at how this is configured again with net. So, all right. So we have this line, which defines the factory. So class interface lazy. Oh wait, hold on. Class reflection registry. It's not. How is this one then used? Arguments factor minimizing container arguments. No, it should just be so I guess that's one thing. I see factory. Like factory, how does it know to call get registry on this? So this get registry, that's an interface. Maybe I'm thinking of how factories work. Oh, here we go. Okay. So file excluder factory, create auto false. Finder. So this would actually be, this is the class. So before I go and refactor things, I want to make sure that this works. Because none of the tests seem to verify the configuration. And I usually have tests that do that. So let's go, actually what I should do is net dependency injection. I spelled that wrong. Let's go DI. Let's do generated factories. Factory. Parameterize factory. Create advanced. article factory create article. That's advanced article factory set up. Okay, that's not really gonna answer what I was hoping for. So this does define as a class and then calls itself I don't know. That's just I'm gonna try go here. And then in this config, it has the @ symbol with the method. Just do get to. I'm just gonna run the test. It's either gonna blow up or pass. So this is where I don't know if this actually worked or not. So it worked, but I'm gonna just run through this with Xdebug because I don't believe it. Oh, didn't start with valid session. Oh, it went to PHP 8.2. I don't feel like installing Xdebug right now and it taking a while, so I'm just gonna switch back to PHP 8.1. Supposedly, that's gonna be faster. But now I feel like it's not. Let's see if running it and there we go. It's weird. I don't know why PHPStan would hang. So yeah, so I use brew to manage PHP, and I just basically unlink PHP and then link the specific version as needed. So now, there we go. Xdebug and Blackfire. Let's go debug this test. All right. Well, I guess I wired it appropriate because we're here. And it's working. So why don't we just say scope helper. Go back. Bar. NC injection. Yeah, it just says if equal to null, which we're not using type properties, so we can do that. So if all right. I mean, if the tests are working, it's got to be good to go. Just rerun it, which means then all the tests can be reworked to have the deprecated scope helper added directly with the specific checkers in place instead of having to add the extended config. So this can now be new default deprecated scope checker. If I delete that line, oh, not want to close the file. Okay, so now the test can be cleaned up and I can write a test for this specific use case. Let's do PHPUnit. One thing I want to turn on. Test runner options. set auto test delay. How do I used this before. Oh, toggle auto test. Here we go. So if you didn't use this before, it's great if you're doing like test-driven development and refactoring and you want to verify things right away. So if I go ahead and change that and I click save, 1, 2, 3. So 3-second delay. It's every time that I save a file, it's going to rerun the test for me. So what it will really look like, so I saved it, or when I close the file, I'm going to turn that delay to 1 second since we're going pretty fast. So again here, if I replace, oh, never mind, that is based off all changes. So I'm going to put that back to 3 seconds after all, because that's, so I guess it's after any change. I thought it was after save. So yeah, let's go back to 3 seconds. But the idea is that as I make changes, if any time this were to break, I'll know that I did something wrong. When I'm doing like heavy refactoring, I like to run it so that way I don't have to worry about, oh, I made all these changes, now something broke. You just have it there and ready. It does depend on your tests. Like if you're working in Drupal and you have kernel tests that are basically integration level tests or system tests, it's a pain because your test suite probably takes a little long to run. But if you do have just plain old unit tests, it's great. So we're going here. And this will prevent us from having this extra config file in here. Allows the deprecated scope helper to be created from a factory. Keeps it a bit clean. All right. So I'm going to turn off auto test. Then I should run the validation. Let's do make lint. No errors. What's the next one? Oh, that runs make lint and CS. Let's do CS. Oh, can I open CS? Sure. Make tests. Let's run tests. Which, duh, I just had tests. And then make PHPStan. Because that's what matters, that everything passes. Okay. Provider has no type, which is I'll fix that. And then the iterable array for deprecated scope helper. This is an array of deprecated scope resolver. And I'll have to do the same thing here. And then PHPStan should be happy. And now I'm going to see if I can get a test for the group legacy parser. All right. So let's see if there's a dev autoload. So autoload PSR dev class map tests. So tests, rules, data. What's this say? Call to. So it does a class map of tests, rules, applications, data. This is a deprecated upcast. Let's do um custom deprecated scope.php namespace custom deprecated scope call the deprecated function method. Let's just go something simple. Function foo. Where is this? I don't know. Oh, let's go call it deprecated method. Okay, so this just runs in here inside deprecated scope. Oh, actually, this is a good one. Let's do so we'll do this class bar test. From trait. So this function is deprecated, so there should be no warnings in here. So let's do public function test bar, not bar. Let's not get fancy with this. Let's do foo test. Test foo. Legacy. Grouped legacy. You can say group legacy. And where is this loaded in? Call the deprecated method rule. Let's do oh, I don't know. About custom deprecated scope resolver test.php. And this is just going to be all up to be reviewed and torn apart. Final class custom extends rule test case stubs get rule. So let's copy. We're gonna not deprecated. Call the deprecated method. Call the deprecated test. Let's return this rule. And test custom scope. require. Okay, so we need to require this because it has the code in it that we want to analyze. Just copy all this. This analyzed. So we'll call it deprecated method is not what we have custom deprecation scope. Deprecation scope, and we're going to expect some errors. So we want an error on line 13 about deprecated foo, but we shouldn't get one on 23. So we copy this error and just run the test. We should get 2 errors because I didn't add the custom checker yet. So yeah, so 13. So we got 13 and 23, but we want to add the custom checker. So what we'll do is going to say custom scope resolver. Oh, thank you. Copilot. Wow. So that worked better than I thought. It did, like, not entirely, I suppose, but it got me close enough. Actually, no, it didn't. It did not. We'll do bool. Oh, I'm just gonna make an anonymous class to do this testing, and we're gonna prove that it works. So scope, so scope. We want to get the PHPDoc. So let's see. Same method reflection, or same method equals. Oh, what? Get type with method string method name. Shoot. I thought you could get this. Maybe this is gonna be harder than I thought. Node. Oh no. Shit. Maybe this won't work if we need to be able to have the methods because it's tagged per method. Okay, let's look at is in trait, get trait reflection, get function name, is in resolve name, is in class exists, is specified. Well then. I'm gonna drop a breakpoint here and debug it, because if we can't get the information about the current method, then this approach is completely hosed. Is in first little statement, parent scope is in function call stack, but the method is a function, so let's just try rerunning with this call to get the function. All right. Okay. We're good. Say what's going on inside of the default. So we'll just say that if function equal to null, not equal to false, get page. No, okay, stop with Copilot. So get function reflection is deprecated. Get dot comment is the string is deprecated. Native function that's going to already be parsed. Extended. I want to get the. Oh no. Not equal to null and function stop Copilot, knock it off. All right, that's where it gets annoying when I don't want its suggestions, but I want to just get it's deprecated self output get dot comment. Okay, so we can do get dot comment. That's not annotation property. This is going to be method PHP method reflection. So it's nullable string. So let's do also if function is not equal to null and null. Let's do a stop. All right, let's do some debugging. And it's like foo. We have this text in here. We could do like a string contains. I guess that'd be it. I guess that's just going to be it to make this pass. But really, there should be a way to get the dot comment and then parse it. Method call. Make PHPDoc block. Resolve PHPDoc from class. What's this do? Where's the public? Right, resolve PHPDoc block for method. Oh, here we go. Where is this used? This. For method, for constant, for property. Class reflection, method name. Oh boy. So for all intents and purposes, I'm not going to go down that because that will be saved for the proper implementation. So we'll say and string there. Now it did a good job. It being Copilot. and we'll return, and the test should pass. So if function is not equal to null and function.comment comment is not equal to null, and it contains group legacy. Stop, play the test. Now it passes. So we proved it works, for better or worse. There's a huge amount of changes going on here. But now folks can add their own custom checkers that are resolvers. So I need to rename this too. It's so deprecated scope. These aren't checkers. These are resolvers. Let's call those resolvers. Which means a tag, deprecated scope resolver. I'm going to go for it. So let's go ahead and we'll first make PHPStan. Make sure I didn't cause any errors with my test. I sure did. Extension generic class will test case, but not in specified type. So let's copy that from here. No errors. Git status. Don't know why I would do it. Add tests. Status. Source. I don't know why I never commit anything through the PHP Storm. I still have a habit of doing it all from the command line. So let's do git commit. Add deprecated scope resolver. Add a add deprecated scope resolver. Adds the ability to register deprecated resolving. That's add deprecated scope resolving. Deprecated scope resolvers for controlling the deprecated scope. Push. Track this to my origin. Let's create the PR. What? Oh, GitHub repo set default. Oh, did I wait? No, shoot. So I cloned it without creating my fork first, and that's what I messed up. So here, create, there we go. All right. Well, that's one heck of a pull request. Fix it 64. Gave this a shot, and the pull request, it's quite a bit of changes, but add scope resolvers to extend what is considered a deprecated scope. All right, what failed? Coding standard, dang it. Then have it locally, deprecated. Let's fix those before I sign off. So yeah, I'm gonna just fix these PHP coding standards and I'm gonna sign off. Kids have baseball today. Deprecated scope resolver. Right? Hold on. There must be a single space between. Oh. Okay. This is set up this way. Oh. Workflows. Build. Let's get CS tools locally. Coding standard. Working directory build CS. Wait, what? There is no. What? Oh, it checks out the PHPStan build CS into a subdirectory. All right. Your repo clone. The cd build CS composer install. Make lint. Now do make CS. Go. Now let's look at this make file. Oh, CS install. I could have just done it right there. CS fix. Now I have a makefile extension somewhere. Why is it? Oh, there it is. So should be able to just run CS. There we go. Just double check the diff, revision files. Yeah, we don't want that. Sure. Get diff. Yeah. Add. Test. Get status. Diff cached. Just to double check. Get commit. I'm just going to do a amend no edit and force push. All right. We'll see how this goes over. Hopefully it isn't too absurd. I feel like it is because it changes a lot of things, but I guess there's no real way around it to add this kind of functionality. The main thing is hopefully we can get some reviews. The pull request page locked up on me. All right, all checks passed. Now I just gotta wait and see if I can get some reviews on it, and hopefully this moves things forward. So thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna run, and I'll be back next week, probably working on PHPStan Drupal. I think that'll be it, or unveiling a super secret project I've been working on for Drupal 7. to let you run Drupal 7 code in a Drupal 10 site so you can have a Franken Drupal. Not sure if I'll be streaming on that yet, but it's something I might be unveiling for DrupalCon Pittsburgh that I'm not going to. So thanks for hanging out. Have a good one, everybody.